thank you again for joining us. This is The Creative Economy, Managing Multiple Income Streams. I'm Callan Moody, Assistant Director for Alumni Affairs at Berklee. So yeah, without further ado, I'd like to introduce our panelists. From the East Coast, we'll kind of go east to west. We have Christine Occhino, who's from the class of 2011. From Nashville, kind of middle of the country, we have Shantell Ogden, from class of 2005. And then from out in LA, our West Coast representative, we have Rowan, who's class of 2013. So awesome. Let's start with Christine, kind of jump in. If you can we'll start with Christine and then go Shantell and then to Ro. But can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself, your background, and kind of what the industry is like in the city that you are in?
Sure. So I am from Stamford, Connecticut. That's my hometown. Obviously loved music, went to Berklee, studied music business and management there, and was a voice principal. And then straight from there, launched my career at Columbia Records. So I did digital marketing there, and some of the artists on the roster were Beyonce, Foster the People, J. Cole, Adele, just a few lesser known artists, which was very, very cool. So I got kind of like inside the belly of the beast, so to speak, there, and then definitely knew that I wanted to be an entrepreneur, something that I focused on when I was at Berklee, and my family is full of entrepreneurs as well. So I came back to my hometown, spent a lot of time obviously in New York City. So Stamford's right in the border of New York. So it's kind of in and out for all of my music stuff. And I built my business here. So I am the founder and CEO of Lock City Music Group. We have recording studios for artists to record all of the pre-production stuff, all the tracking, post-production. We do it all. We also do artist services. So it's a subscription-based record label that I run that is artist-friendly and artist-first, and allows the artist to maintain 100% of the rights to their music in the way that I always wished it had been, and kind of wanted to create the label I always wanted as an artist. And then we do music education as well, and help artists and youth to adults fill those voids in the education that they've always wanted, that we were fortunate enough to get from a place like Berklee. And then I'm the founder of a 501c3 organization called Hope and Harmony, and we bring music to people in need to promote health and healing, and work with a lot of inner city students at the Boys and Girls Club. We bring them programming every single week through workshops to teach them about music and career building.
Wow.
Just a few things. So Shantell, if you can give us a little bit about your background.
Sure. So I grew up in rural Utah on a farm, and for me, the thread has been songwriting and along with that, storytelling. So I went to Berklee as a little bit older student. I already had my degrees in business from another university, and so I had worked already in marketing at technology companies, and then decided I wanted to go to Berklee and study something that I was passionate about. So I went there and I worked while I went to school. And then when I graduated, for me, my goal was really to become a better songwriter. And so that goal took me to Nashville. A couple things I'll just let you know about Nashville as a town. The best way I've heard it described was by a hit songwriter friend of mine who said, when you come to Nashville, there's the group that you rise with and the group that you get invited to. And it sounds a little bit cliquish, but that's the truth, that you will meet people that arrive in Nashville about the same time as you do during your career. And those will be people that you'll start co-writing with that are kind of at the same point in their careers. And then as you gradually start to brand yourself as a strong songwriter, you'll get noticed by people kind of on the next level. And there's a term that they always say about writing up. So you want to write with someone who's better than you are as a songwriter, so you can become a stronger songwriter. The other thing I'll say about Nashville is that, of course, we are a music city for a reason. A lot of our music scene and the music industry has been impacted really negatively around COVID, which I'm sure we'll touch on later. And but in terms of the way of life in Nashville and the community there, it's really a beautiful place and a wonderful place to live.
Awesome. Thank you. And Ro, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm from LA, and like Shantell, I was doing something totally different and went as a little bit an older student. I was doing fitness for 5 or so years, running my own business and doing music on the side, and have a degree in musicology from UCLA. And I just was like not happy. And so I did a total 180, went back to school, went to Berklee. Best decision I ever made. And I studied electronic production and design because I wanted to make electronic dance music. And my principal is cello. And I got an internship at Apple, and again was sitting behind a desk and realized I wasn't happy. So kind of did the same thing again, moved back to LA, and just thought I need to really try this freelance thing and go for my dream of trying to do that. And I relate, it's like, yes, you play at one level and then you kind of meet someone and you maybe get invited to this next level. That's very similar to LA. It's cliquish, but it's predominantly a lot of film and television and singer-songwriter pop, band culture. But I landed predominantly in film and television, and in line with what we're talking about, like I had my hands in a lot of different pots, so to speak. And remote recording is one of the things I've done for many years now. So when the whole industry kind of just like fell to the floor, remote recording has been the thing that has sustained me. I do some sound design, I do some video work, like I just do anything and everything I can do that makes me happy. So yeah, I guess that's it's similar to what you were saying, Shantell, was that the industry is just kind of stopped.
Yep. So I guess kind of along those lines, kind of set the scene a little bit. Ro, if we want to start with you, what was an average week? I guess we'll do week or day, however kind of the work structure breaks down. What was an average week like for you before March? You can go back, think that far back, like what March 2020, before this all hit, what were you doing on a regular basis?
I would say it was primarily sessions. So I would go to, depending on the week, I could go to one session. It could be like 3 or 4, and I'd be driving around to different studios or people's homes because they have a home studio or even just a bedroom. A lot of like film composers that can afford one musician and they're writing out of their home for a project. And then I would do maybe 25 to 30% were remote sessions. And again, it could be a small project, and more they were becoming bigger projects like television shows or streaming movies or, major motion pictures. And then maybe I do some arranging here and there or, that kind of stuff. But it was really like going to sessions was the bulk of it.
Okay, awesome. Shantell, what about you? What was an average week like before March?
So I have always had a full-time day job besides music. I've really had 2 careers that have run in parallel. And so before March, I was working my full-time day job, which was in marketing and communications. And that ended at the beginning of March. So, I was very lucky this year that I've had some film and TV placements. So for me, that started with a lot of networking a few years ago and kind of got my foot in the door. And so I don't know if you wanted us to talk about post-COVID or if you want us to wait. Is that the next question? My question ahead?
Yeah, you go there now. We can always circle back to it.
So most of my income was just through my day job. And so when everything happened in March, I started doing freelance marketing and communications. I had some film and TV placements that gratefully came through. I sold some stuff. I painted for family. I've done some online shows. Recently, in the last few weeks, I've done some outdoor concerts, like house concerts that people can social distance. But my hustle mode just took over, and I just started doing whatever I could to make money, because that's the reality of paying bills and being a grown up. So
Hashtag adulting. Christine, what about you? Average week pre-March?
Sure. I mean, I think the beauty about what I do and what I love about the life I created in music is that there really is no regular day. There's no, I don't wake up and do the same thing every day, which is, for me and my personality type, that's the best thing. And the reason why I work so hard at what I do and making a small business work is because I love that every day is something new. But in general, the time is split 4 ways, I would say. We do a lot of recording studio stuff. So I have found that I'm in a unique situation that I own a recording studio. I have worked out of recording studios like since I was like 14, but I was always behind the microphone. I was never the one behind the console and the mixing board, and I call it like the spaceship. So I had I have a lot of producer type experience, but not engineering experience. So I would be the one who would be involved on that aspect of things, and the coordinating. So all of the business type admin things that make the studio work, all the interfacing with the clients, doing the bookings, all the coordinating, the logistics, making sure everyone's experience is good and that everything's happening in a timely fashion for them. So that was what I was probably the busiest with pre-COVID. And then I do a little bit of teaching here and there. So every week I'll have like a set amount of clients that I'll work with that kind of runs a gamut, all ages. Some are voice primarily, but songwriting, artist development stuff, kind of anything in between. With music business consulting, I do as well. And then that was sort of coupled with the Hope and Harmony programming. So I am always still involved in everything. We started Hope and Harmony in 2015 and run the programs at the Boys and Girls Club. So we were in there every single week until this hit, and the poor kids that are out of school and everything else, that all stopped and came to a screeching halt. So I had to immediately try to figure out what I can do remote now. And we were also in the process of rebranding the label stuff that I was doing. So I wanted to add a bunch of new services that are additionally creative. So we were coming up with these really unique packages that people could get a flat rate mix and master done remotely, and which is ironic because everything's remote now anyway. But we were in the middle of rebranding and doing new websites and all kinds of stuff at the time, and then everything kind of just stopped out of nowhere. So we've been pivoting since then.
Nice. I think, yeah, that's the theme for everybody for the past, I think it's only been like 3 months, but yes, pivoting. All I can think of right now is like Ross from Friends yelling pivot, but awesome. So you were kind of talking about this already, Shantell, but if you can expand a little bit on, over the past few months, what has changed for you and kind of how you've managed that. You talked about getting there and hustling and making ends meet. So what have you kind of drawn upon, or how have you been managing that situation?
So one of the hardest things for me as a singer-songwriter who does touring is I wasn't able to go overseas this year. And that's a big part of every year for me, is booking shows and going over to the UK. And so that was probably that was a hard thing for me. I had some shows also in the US that canceled, and that was hard as well. I think that's something a lot of people can relate to who are performing musicians, is just the lack of live shows and not being able to go to live shows and not being able to play live shows. And that's been very, very difficult. Of course, you do online events. It's not quite the same, but I just continued. So I was in finishing stages of working on a new album. So I went to the studio, I finished the last 2 songs. I took some time to really work on some of the deliverables around the album launch and really make sure that was a strong launch. I've tried to be creative and think about new projects that I want to do, use the time wisely, get outside, spend more time getting healthy, all those things as well. And I think for me, the biggest is really trying to put in a practice of positivity every day, thinking about things that I'm grateful for, talking to people and telling them, that I'm grateful for them, and just trying to be a support to other people, because I don't think you have to look too far to find someone that has probably a more difficult situation than you do. So I think counting my blessings and just being grateful and trying to reach out and help others is what's helped me maintain, a realistic and hopefully slightly positive mindset that will come out of this in a better place.
Ro, how about you? How have things kind of changed over the past few months, and how have you been managing that?
Well, I had like a 3-month tour planned. I think like 6 or 7 shows that I was writing for and playing for, sessions, which, went away. And like I had this remote recording, which I was grateful for because I was already in motion and I was watching people. Felt like I was sitting on this little perch on a mountain, and I was watching everyone come up the trail towards me because they had to learn and like, how do you use Pro Tools? So I was really grateful that I didn't have to spend time and effort there and didn't have to stress about a lot of things. But, kind of what Shantell was saying, it's such a unique experience and opportunity to just take a fresh look at things. And the thing that struck me immediately was like this sort of self-promotion, or like, I want to get here, or I want to start doing these things, just kind of washed away. And there was this sense of community and checking in on people and being a little more conscious of what's around and being of greater service. And at the same time, like, that's the paradox. Like, I need to continue to work on myself and to work on my music, but it became less about just me, like, head down going forward and seeing where I fit in all that. Tremendous growth. It brought up stuff from my past. It brought up stuff I thought I'd worked on. And it's like, okay, that's still there. Let's work on it. Because for me, that kind of work is so tied in to my creative process and how I navigate in my career and in my relationships. And so I had to just slow down. I had to Marie Kondo my life. Like, does this bring me joy? Like, what is the point of rushing and trying to meet the deadline if I'm not like taking good care of myself? Because that level of serenity and presence became very fragile, not weak, but very fragile. Like, one little thing and I'm down for the day because of just what's going on. So, and especially in the last couple of weeks, all of that has really, the volume has gotten turned up. Like, how do what I say in my art is a statement, whether I say something and what I say, and if I don't. So it has become just like reprogramming my whole approach with how I fit in this creative conversation and how I can participate in bigger ways. And yes, it is about like finding work. Like, I have to be creative and think, what else can I do? But I also I've been thinking a lot about what isn't being done and what spaces are there. What is being run in a way that I'm like, why aren't you doing it differently? And so in some ways I'm thinking about what are some paths that we have the opportunity to create new paths. Like, what are some of those things that don't exist that we can create? So yeah, in some ways it's like, I used a lot of the tools that got me to 3 months ago, but everything has kind of exploded in how I am perceiving things and thinking about things, and what is important has been dramatically reprioritized.
Christine, how about you? How have you kind of been managing between, teaching and the studio and everything like that? How have you been managing everything for the past few months?
Yeah, it's been really rough, 100% transparency. Like, it's been awful. So I feel like a lot of people that I know, and through no fault of their own, but they kind of position themselves in this very glamorous way. People only see what you want them to see on the internet and on, Instagram and things like that. And it's not pretty. It's been really tough. And I think some of the harder stuff is, and I know we were talking about this before the panel started, but I own a small business That's where I am now. But it's a physical brick and mortar space. So I feel like I was personally just really doubly hit on both sides of it, because I had the physical space repercussions of, I still have, my rent was still due. I got no flexibility on that whatsoever. I was denied a PPP loan, first round of them. I applied literally full time as my full-time job, 10 plus hours a day, no exaggeration, to every grant, any piece of funding, even loans. And I think there's a lot of organizations, like big corporate companies, that like to say they're helping the little guy and this and that. And I mean, that frankly just wasn't my experience. I had a really, really tough time trying to keep things afloat. And I have people that work for me. It's not about me, and I've always been very everyone else first. It's just the way my philosophy kind of on doing things. So I have people working for me that have to put food on the table. I have artists that rely on the resources that I provide in order for them to put food on the table. And it was just this kind of weird tornado of events where we couldn't even take business. So I felt very fortunate that we had people that still wanted services. And it's the weirdest feeling to be kind of trapped and not be able to provide them. So we could do as much remote as we could, but I mean, a lot of the remote work, as I'm sure most of us have experienced, there's only so much you can do if that's not your main bread and butter. So we basically wrapped up all of that stuff in the first like 4 to 6 weeks, not knowing how long this would go on for. But when everyone wants in-person tracking, I mean, we have another studio in town where I am, and some of those studios stayed open and just didn't acknowledge the shutdown and kind of had a, I guess, come and get me mentality. And we lost a lot of clients because people, I understand you want to be creative. You're sitting home. What an amazing time for music and for people to really figure out, kind of like Rowan and Shantell were saying, like, what are you passionate about? What makes you tick? What do you love? What do you want to do every day when you come out of this? And a lot of the answers were in the arts. And I think it was a wake-up call to a lot of people, in even politically, that arts are so important. And I know we all believe that, and everyone here in this conversation knows that. So I'm preaching to the choir very much. But I think the rest of the world was like, oh, wow, like entertainment makes me smile. Indulging in music and connecting with people in that way is really important. And I either want to partake in that or want to be a provider of that. So it was very difficult to have that be stopped out of nowhere. And in the reopening that happened around here, so I'm in New York City area, we're in, I believe we're going to phase 2 now, and everything's just not the same. A lot of people aren't comfortable coming back in. And my biggest difficulty was I was so pumped to be back open, because I'm just of the mindset, which I mentioned earlier to you guys on the panel with me, that I had a really weird, like, I think I'd rather struggle and maybe rather die than like not get to do this thing that I love so much. And business is, my business is everything to me. I've worked my whole life to have the opportunity to be a service provider, to make music my living, and having that stripped away and there's nothing I could do about it was one of the hardest things, because the bills keep coming in, nothing stopped for me. So where's that money supposed to come from? And you're coming back to a time when people are a little bit freaked out and people don't have disposable income to spend the same way because everyone's in the same boat. So I try very much to think about it as an opportunity, but my staffing situation here changed tremendously. And my lead engineer was not comfortable coming back to work with what was going on, with very, very strict measures in place that made it basically an impossibility for us to run things. So we had all these people coming in wanting services and no one to provide them. So I'm very determined and just said, I guess this is my opportunity to make up for lost time, that all those classes I should have done at Berklee in engineering primarily. So I've been taking online courses for the last 3 months, learning how to engineer and becoming a better producer and using my ears and my talents more. And I would say that I think this is going to be the most important thing. And the best thing to come out of it is I was able to refocus with what I love. I think we all get caught up so much in the day-to-day, and like Rowan was saying, like you're rushing around, you're doing this, Shantell, you have like your regular job, you're balancing with your tours, and we all just have so much we're doing. And I sat here and said, I'm not using my voice. That's the craziest thing, that singing is my #1 passion of my entire life. And the last time I sang for myself, I couldn't even tell you. And it's kind of sad, and it's a bummer, but everything seems to be more important. So I finished my first session project in a very long time yesterday, which is really exciting. And I engineered the whole thing myself, which is very cool and like super exciting for me. And basically started all of that, have been in every single recording session, learning all of it by myself. And I'm very determined to create a new age COVID-proof business, if you will, and make sure that I'm not wasting my talents, and the things that I love the most aren't getting pushed to the wayside in all of this.
Awesome. That kind of leads perfectly in, like, you're talking about taking classes and building new talents, and I feel like you've all kind of touched on this, but can you talk about, what skills have you found yourself using or leaning on more during this time than you did before, and kind of how have you channeled that energy into either, new business models or like new thoughts or daily practices or things along like that? Christine, if you kind of want to build off of what you were just talking about.
Sure. So engineering, obviously, I was saying, I had like a light foundation in all of it just from being a musician at Berklee primarily. But sight reading, hey, haven't done that in a long time, and was sent a lead sheet the other day and was like, oh no, not this again. Because I always kind of just lean on I am blessed to have great ears, I'd love to say, and have always kind of gotten to weasel my way by. And when I was forced to really sit down, and I mean, it's been a very long time since I was sitting in a classroom at Berklee doing, ear training or any of that, or sight singing. So that was a very cool moment to brush that all up. And it's still in there somewhere. I just had to kind of dust it off. And I had like immediate flashbacks of those testing periods. It's like, oh my God, I remember this in school. I was so bad at this. So that was really cool to brush up on. My business skills are super sharp because I use them all the time, but I think it's been a lot of fun actually to get the musical side of what I do back up to speed with where the business side is. So that's been a very important tool. And I think learning to work within the parameters of what the people you work with are comfortable with, just because I'm okay to get out there and get going again doesn't mean that everyone is. And I think that's something so important, to really listen to the people that you work with and the people you love and care about and are here to help, and vice versa. And being able to meet them where they are has been a big deal for me, that the people that are really need to work remotely, let's find a way to make that work. The people that are ready to come in, let's find a way to make this safe so that everyone's comfortable and can continue to be successful in this sort of new world that we're all trying to navigate together. And we all have the same goal. So I think that's an important thing, but just brushing up on all my own skills from years and years and classes past has been very valuable to me, and not being afraid to admit that I'm not good at something or I don't know something. And it's very humbling to take some of these classes, and I'm doing the Berklee online stuff right now while I'm getting familiar with it. But it's cool to realize how much you know, and also to say, this is a world that I may never know everything. And that's also, for me, I love that challenge. I think it's so interesting that you can live your whole life and always learn more about music. And there's always someone who knows more than you that you can learn from. So that's been good for me, at least throughout this process.
Awesome. Shantell, how about you? Any either newly developed skills or skills where you're like, oh yes, I'll brush up on that, and that you use kind of charging a new path with your hustle?
So I think the things that I use are the things that I've always used, which is networking and creativity. And so years ago, Berklee had a guy come to Nashville named Gerd Leonard. This was probably 12 years ago. And he talked about how opportunities will come from your network. And this was before LinkedIn got big. This was before a lot of social networking really took off. And for me, I'm spending a lot of time on LinkedIn. I'm spending a lot of time networking online with other people, because opportunities for new jobs or for freelance projects come from that. The other thing is, I mean, I think creativity is just a theme for me, which is, thinking about something to look forward to. So I'm going to be starting on a new music project, even though I just released my last album on Saturday. I already am thinking about a new music project around addiction recovery, and it's going to be the journey of addiction recovery in a like an 8-song project. And so for me, I personally need things to look forward to. So if that's like a new music project, or if that's getting to work with someone new or write with someone new, or if that's traveling, to see a friend and social distance, any of those things I think are the things that keep me going, and then constantly networking. I wish I had more time for things like personal development, but honestly, I've been so worried about paying my bills and staying on top of that I think my focus has really been around things that will hopefully generate some opportunities for income.
Thank you. Ro, how about you?
Obviously the remote recording, the volume got turned up on that because that became the only avenue. Video, I've done video as a hobby since I was little, but now everyone wants a video. So it's nice to just slip into that. I'm not really a phone person and sort of shy by nature, so I've had to up my phone game and like was talked about, connecting with others. And I've actually found myself teaching, like instructing people, like getting up and running with their home recording setup or a software program or something, which has been really lovely to not only just connect, because I think some days it's like, I don't care, let's just, whatever you need, I'll just do it. Like I just feel connected because I live alone. But it's been really nice to just kind of be of service to my community in a way. And like you were saying, Shantell, like, yes, the community and the network is like, I think I was taking a look at the people that I invested time in and would take the risk of making a phone call or when I felt comfortable calling them. But I think I really was like challenging myself to reach out to people that I hadn't reached out to and to create this sort of network that is really the only form of social interaction for the most part these days that doesn't happen just by accident. Like, you're in this session too, cool, it's great to see you, and I know I see you a couple times a year. Like I have to make a decision to reach out to these wonderful people now. And then I'm also just thinking, like I was saying, how can I change the industry? And I think with the Black Lives Matter, and I feel like it's my responsibility to be very conscious about what I do and how I navigate moving forward. Like I contract sometimes, and I had to say, wow, I have not done enough. I've been a part of the problem. And just really like recalibrating, and how am I going to be very mindful of this moving forward, even after the protests have stopped, So really thinking like, how can I impact the industry? And that's, in a way that's my business brain, and it feels big and it feels huge and scary, but I'm like, pardon the expression, but fuck it, what have I got to lose?
Thank you. We have a few more questions left, but just a reminder for all the attendees, if you have any questions for our panelists or anything like that, feel free to put them into the question function. We'll be getting to those shortly. I know the last one I have, and Christine, if you kind of want to start with this one, as you kind of brought it up earlier, is, you have cities and states, they're beginning to reopen. So it's kind of as everybody adjusts to this phrase of the new normal, what that looks like. Are you kind of shifting your entrepreneurial focus a bit more? And then what is the cities that you are all in, what are they like now? Kind of how are things moving forward?
So New York City area has been obviously hit tremendously hard and is sort of I know everyone's like the epicenter of everything here. So it's been weird. It's been kind of a ghost town when you walk around this type of area that's used to a very hustle and bustle type of feeling. I'm in a big building with lots of businesses in it, and I would come in sometimes just to get out of the house. To be really honest, I was like, I need to maintain some sort of routine or I'm going to lose my so I would come here sometimes and just to see everything quiet. And the roads are dead, and it's like you're in like a scary movie, and you feel like every day you're going to wake up from it. And I know we've all in our own ways gone through that. So that's been different, and I think seeing the impact that this has had, and I know we touched on this earlier actually, but we're not really going to see the repercussions for several months, and I think this may be a year-long process of us understanding what has happened, what are the results of what's happened, who can kind of get by, what models are going to change. So I know like my business model personally is changing pretty substantially, but a lot of what I do is just an in-person business by nature, and I can't change that. And that also goes back to people that I provide services to, that with touring basically not being in effect, I mean, almost everyone that I know personally that I went to school with, that's a huge part of their income, if not like their sole part of income. So like, what can I do to help facilitate that process and help other people earn more? And like, we've been coming up with really creative ways to help artists earn money. And I mean, I know that there's the starving artist kind of mentality that, you know, this is what it is and what sometimes people think you sign up for when you do the arts. And I mean, it's no lie that it's a different road. And I think it's different in a lot of really beautiful ways, but it's not secure in the way someone who might work in finance or have a regular 9-to-5, obviously, you know, has that paycheck coming in. So trying to create new ways for myself, and in turn, how can I now help the artists that I work with discover a new revenue stream that they wouldn't have access to, and what kind of extra services can I provide? So we've been looking into all of that, and I have basically been meeting with all the artists that I represent and saying, what do you want to learn more about? What are you afraid of? What are the things that you avoid doing? What do you honestly just not understand, know how to do? And it's amazing when you just have a transparent conversation with some of the people around you. And people are usually very open about stuff like that when you get on their level, and they genuinely want to ask how they're doing. So we were able to incorporate a lot of that and open it up so that we can do things that are really meaningful and helpful to people in a way that's affordable and fair to everyone, so that I feel like if I win, everyone wins, and I'm very like help everyone grow and build together. So that's been really good. I table and do outdoor dining, which it kind of reminds me of like, you know, the alfresco eating in Europe and stuff, but it's actually been nice. I mean, to be with other people that you love, see them in person again, and maintain some semblance of, you know, what we've all been used to and enjoyed has been really nice. I went to a vineyard this weekend. It was fabulous. And we social distance and everything was great. So things are slowly coming back, and I'm here for it. I'm very excited about it. And I think everyone's very encouraged in their own ways of finding a way to maintain what they're used to. So New York's coming back. We'll be back, people. Can't keep us down.
Awesome. Shantell, what are you seeing in Nashville? And I know, you know, right before all this hit, of course, there was the awful tornado in Nashville as well. So it's kind of a double recovery in a way for this city.
I think Nashville is a city with a lot of heart. Those people that have been there or who live there have seen a lot of Nashville strong kind of moments. It's one of the themes of the town. Of course, what was it, like 13 years ago, we had those terrible floods that flooded almost the entire city. I think the spirit of Nashville will continue to move forward. I think the music industry is undergoing a lot of change right now. I know that there's a lot of people who have been laid off of their jobs in the music industry. I talked to a friend of mine that works at one of the major touring companies. She said that everything got moved to the fall, and then everything is getting moved to the spring of next year. And they just continue to push major tours out. Of course, there's a lot of musicians and people behind the scenes that support those tours and who play on those tours. Of course, you know, as well, this is summer months, big tourism months for Nashville. It's had a big impact there. I do know that they've started to open up things again, but we've also seen a spike in cases. So I don't know exactly what the future looks like, but I know that Nashville will survive. And I think that those of us who continue to, try to look for the good and stay creative and stay moving forward with an eye, kind of faith that things will get better for everybody, that it will be okay, and that Nashville will bounce back from this. But I do think there's going to be some pretty major changes on how things get done in town.
Awesome. And I kind of talked about, having something to look forward to and stuff, but through all of this and the reopening, is there anything that you're kind of thinking about shifting your business focus on again? Or I know you talked about doing a new album and projects like that, but anything else along those lines? If you want to talk about that a little bit more.
Yeah, I think just for me, I really would love to hear what the people on the call are. I would love to just, it would be so much better if I could see your faces and I knew what you guys were going through. But because I think everybody has a story right now, and it's different and it's hard in different ways for people. I mean, for me, the work that I'm going to be doing is going to be remote work, and that's for a few reasons. One, I have found that this has reignited my faith in being a remote worker, that most things can be done remotely. And so the jobs that I'm looking for and the opportunities that I'm doing are remote, which means I can spend time with family that maybe, I won't always have that time to spend. When you're not out on the road, your availability to spend time with your family is much different than if you were out touring. So most of what I can do remotely. And so my focus is continuing to look for those types of opportunities and, just stay the course. I'm trying to be accepting of the situation and not frustrated by it, and just kind of accepting of where I'm at and not frustrated by it. So I think acceptance is a big thing for me, and patience, and I'm just trying to work on those things going forward.
Thank you. Ro, how about you as far as LA kind of reopening or starting to reopen? Are you and you talked about wanting to create new paths and working more with the community and stuff. Are you focusing or refocusing your work at all, or are you how are you managing everything?
Well, LA, California as a whole has been, I think, has been stricter with the sort of the rules. I think LA is just the studio scene and the sort of film industry is kind of slowly starting to open with all these parameters. But there is definitely like this hesitation on going back. So as of now, most is remote still. Yeah, I really related to having something to look forward to. So, yes, I have this big idea that I thought of 2 days ago, and I'm totally obsessed with, like every minute of every day thinking, okay, how do I do this? This is huge, but it pretty much just is like seeing all the things that I've seen over since I've been back 5 years. And what are the things that we're always complaining about? What are the things that don't feel fair? How are people not being taken care of? And so I'm trying to lump that all into one little proposal that I can present to some big company and just give it a go. What the heck? But the smaller things are, yes, I'm collaborating with people that I want to collaborate with, and trying to get better at my own home recording, and trying to help friends, like any chance that I can, that someone might even hint at needing a violist or something. I'm like, trying to get other friends work. Yeah, and just riding the wave. I'm just one day at a time, trying to find my joy.
Yes. Yeah. Lots of that. Awesome. So I think that's about it for my questions. We have had a few come through for the attendees. So the first was specifically for Shantell, but I think everybody's kind of touched on this. So if you have anything else to add, it's kind of, how do you approach networking on sites like LinkedIn and others, or kind of building your community while we're all physically separated from building a community? So Shantell, if you want to kick that one off.
Sure. So the first, one of the first universal truths that I found in my life is that people love to talk about themselves, right? We all do. It's a universal truth. And so if you are trying to grow your network, one of the ways to do that is through informational interviews. So you reach out to someone that you know, or maybe is kind of on the fringes of your network, and you say, I'm interested in blah. Do you know anyone that does blah? And will you connect me to them? And I've done this. So true confessions time. I love golf, but I'm terrible at it. I'm a very bad golfer, but I love golf. I love getting outside. And so I've been interested in the golf industry. And so I asked a friend of mine that worked at a related company to introduce me to a couple people that he'd worked with in the golf industry. And then I had informational interviews with those people. And then I said, wow, this has been so helpful. Do you know a couple other people that might be interested in or might be willing to give me a few minutes of their time to learn about their journeys? So that's one way to do it. The other way to grow your network is to give. And so you can give your way into about any network there is, whether it be your time or your talents. If there's somebody that you want to get to know, volunteer at an organization that they care about, right? If there's a skill that you want to highlight. So for example, like if I wanted to work at a music startup, I might reach out to them and say, hey, I'd love to, help you with this volunteer project you're doing. So that's kind of how networking works for me. It's just a series of referrals, informational interviews, that kind of thing, coupled with something that Ro said earlier, is that, help make connections for other people, right? If you see a job or if you meet someone that you think, wow, this person really should talk to this other person. I've done that with single people. I've made like romantic matches over COVID for people. I've done that with like business connections, just people. Be a connector in your network. Be a connector. Be someone that can connect people to other people.
Oh, thank you. Ro or Christine, anything to add to that as far as, again, networking, whether it's directly through LinkedIn or kind of just building community while we're all stuck at home, for lack of a better term?
I mean, I loved what you just said. And I would just say for me, the most important thing is I like to work with and interact with people that make me feel good. And if someone doesn't make me feel good, I do whatever I can, if it's in my power, to not work with that person if our vibrations don't work, And so I approach networking that way. Like, I always want to make a connection with a person before I actually am thinking about anything beyond that. And I found that works really well with networking. Do I like this person? Do I want to talk with this person? Do I enjoy this person? Great. And then I feel like people can smell it when you want something. But just like what Shantell said, if I approach everything with what can I offer, I swear magic happens in the networking department.
Yeah, I think you both nailed it. I mean, that's been my experience even prior to COVID things. When I wanted to get my foot in a door that I have no business being in, I always, here's something that I can do. And I think you have to genuinely give it. If you go into the situation with it being very calculated, I also agree with Ro. Like, I think people can smell that from a mile away, and that you won't have a long-term relationship. It'll never work out in the long run if you're going in and kind of making it a chess match for something you want. But like when I started the nonprofit, for example, I had no experience working in charity or anything. Founding a charity, this was very foreign. I just was extremely passionate about the fact that I, in running the music school portion of what I was doing, saw so much talent from the inner cities. And I had so many young kids that had like specifically voices that would blow your minds, like the baby Whitney Houstons and Stevie Wonders and Michael Jacksons, like all these people that like I grew up loving. I was like, oh my God, like these kids, like they need to be nurtured, they need to be enriched. And I feel fortunate that my family was able to work really hard and set aside money to put me in lessons and help me get to a place like Berklee to be where I am right now talking to you. And I feel it's my responsibility to pay that forward and to help anyone I can if I have those resources available to me. And this was back in like 2014 probably. And I just started scholarshiping tons of kids into the school, and then saw the same issue was happening over and over where they couldn't even get to lessons. A lot of the parents are single parent households, and if someone had to work overtime or another shift, they couldn't even get to where we were we were in a part of the city that wasn't as easily accessible by public transit. And I said, we need to do something. We need to go where they are. Let's go into the city, into the neighborhoods where there is just a plethora of talent that maybe is not getting the attention that it needs. And we created this partnership with the Boys and Girls Club that I had no contacts, I had done nothing. And I literally, like, through my old boxing gym, the owner's wife was someone who worked with the younger kids. And I just said, can I take a meeting? I just love to learn more about you. Can I take you to coffee? Kind of just the old school way you're taught to network. And I went in there and just said, I just want to give. And she connected me with someone else, kind of the way that you guys were saying. And I sat down in this very intimidating meeting and, you know, just tried to act like I was ready for this. And I was very much not. It was like totally like nervous and trying to not show it, keep my hands down so I couldn't see. I was a little shaky. And I just said, this is what I can offer. I want to do this because I care about it. And one of the last things they said, was, how much do you want? And I said, I want nothing. And they like couldn't, I just remember that day like it was yesterday. They just stared at me and said, you want nothing? Like this was a trick. And I said, I want nothing. I will come here on my own time. I want to work with these kids. I want to help teach them music. And it's very important to me. And we did that for a very long time. And I am fortunate to have great partners in that organization, great board members. I mean, everyone that's involved is so wonderful and has that like-minded wanting to give. And this turned into a nonprofit that has done very well, that runs programming every week and is decently funded now. But it all started with just giving something and making that connection and really caring. And I think every relationship I've ever gotten in and people I've worked with, it's, I think, being genuinely showing that you want to contribute makes the best relationships that then turn into things that years later you'll say, wow, how crazy is that I'm here in this circumstance all because I took the time to have that meeting with someone who wanted to pick my brain or wanted to just show me their music and I took the time to listen. I think it's I completely agree with you guys that that's the best way to make any connection.
Awesome. So we are very quickly running out of time. So it looks like we had a couple of questions. I don't know if we'll be able to get to, but I will, for those folks that submitted them, I will share those with our panelists and see if we can get connections there, kind of share those emails. But before we jump off, is there all one piece of advice or a takeaway or a tip that you can give our listeners as far as, you know, something about hustling or building community or networking or something that would just be, you think, helpful for other folks to know in a similar situation? Ro, if we want to start with you.
Oh, don't start with me. I was like, no, don't start with me. I'm formulating it.
Right below my picture on the screen.
Oh, really, me? You know, I guess to piggyback off this last like networking thing is to, I think because we have had to adjust and pivot, is to find that balance between what feels authentic and, you know, trust your intuition. If it feels like really bizarre and weird and like, no way, like try, just, this is the time to try stuff. And it's okay to fail or make a mistake. Like in another panel, someone said, I try to make mistakes faster, just get them out of the way, you know? And to just, you know, tap into that inner grit. Like we're Berklee folk, like we got grit, we got hustle, and I just, you know, try to find your joy. That, you know, that's been like a big one for me, is this is a really intense time. So really find those things that bring you joy and being of service. I mean, the whole coronavirus thing, the Black Lives Matter, it's all about working together, helping other people, you know, lifting other people up. I really believe, even though like I may be struggling and I'm worried about money or you know, my family's health, like just like what Shantell said, every time I give, I am wowed by abundance that comes from that. So it's a weird thing that happens when you give, you actually get.
Awesome. Shantell, any final thoughts?
Yeah, so I'm going to leave you with a couple of things. First of all, please connect with me on social media. My email is just my first name last name @comcast.net. If I can help you with anything, please reach out to me. There's never a day that's so busy that I can't respond to something. If I can be of help, I'd be happy to. The other thing I'll just leave as something that my grandpa always used to say. My sweet cowboy grandpa always used to say, Shantell, there's nothing so bad that something good can't come out of it. So when I think about COVID and I think about that, just remember those wise words that something good can come out of this for you and for me and for all of us.
Awesome. Christine?
Sure. So for connecting, I kind of am the same school of thought as Shantell. I'm always happy to work with anybody, help them. I've been a great resource, I feel like, for a lot of newer Berklee alumni coming out. I get contacted all the time from people that have put me in contact, and I love helping. So I'm at Xtina Elise if you're on Instagram or any of the sort, and it's Christine at lockcitymusicgroup.com. Feel free, anybody, reach out anytime. I would say my biggest piece of advice is to do the things that scare you most. And I am a person that takes my own advice very much. And I was personally scared in the situation of all of the talent that was in place that was adding the most value in those areas, and the areas that I was unfamiliar with, I avoided. And that specifically goes into like the music production field and engineering. And I was very, very fearful that I wasn't good enough, that I didn't have the talent, that it was too late, that I could never start learning this stuff now, and had to do a little bit of like the soul searching I think all of us did during our quiet time, and said, why can't it be me? Why can't I be a really, really dope chick engineer? Why can't I start now? Who says I can't? Nobody. And I was the only one in my own way, and kind of pulled myself up by the bootstraps and said, I'm gonna get dirty, and now everything's gonna be pretty, but I am determined to be the best version of myself, and the best musician, and the best entrepreneur, and the best person in my community, music and otherwise. Like, this is my responsibility, and if I do that and make strides with it every single day, I'm gonna go to sleep with a clear head at night. And made myself accountable for those changes. I made sure to talk about them to my family and my friends, and that helps keep me accountable, because someone's always gonna ask, oh, how's that thing going? And if you're like, it's going. So that's been really, really important. I think all of us, you have so many resources online, you have so many resources within your alumni community, on the internet, giving. We talk so much about, like, you can do anything, and now more than ever, better yourself, trust in your gut, believe in yourself. There's nothing you can't do if you really, really are passionate about it and put your mind to it. So that's my 2 cents.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much to all of you for joining us today, and for all of our attendees that joined as well. Next Tuesday, shameless plug, we have another webinar called Intro to Podcasting Industry. So information about that you can find on our Facebook page. And then once again, this was recorded. So once we're done and have it cleaned up, I will be sure to share this out with all of you. Yeah, I think that's about it. Thank you again to everyone who joined today, and to our wonderful panelists.